Open Minds Media.
Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. Are you guys going to want to come build this?
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sighting of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said, "There's a monster on the wall."
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, bizarreites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that, like two people now, call Shane Squatch. And alongside me, I have the big bad Boo Daddy himself, Mr. Orin Felix.
Live and in person.
Always live and in person. Or at least this time, since we're doing lives now. We are kind of actually live and in person now, instead of live a week prior.
Well, speaking of being live and in person, our next live in-person episode of Bizarre Inquiries is going to be on Thursday, June the 5th. It's going to be about 7:15 Eastern time on the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. So you guys make sure that you submit any questions or articles or videos or anything like that that you want us to inquire about. And also be sure to join in on the chat as we are recording. We've had a lot of good participation the past few months on the chat, and it's a lot of fun to talk with you guys as we're going through the material. So yeah, everybody look forward to that.
And if you guys don't mind going and checking out the Open Minds Media merch store, I mentioned it on the last episode, but I do have two brand new designs over there, one of which is inspired by this show, of course, but with the roles a little bit reversed as far as Sasquatch has the allotments and the alien has the joint, where I think that would be switched in this dynamic over here. But regardless, I felt like it kind of fit the picture better. So you got this awesome design where you have Sasquatch sipping a beer, hanging out around a campfire, chilling with an alien, smoking a joint. It's a pretty cool design. And then the other one says break the mind control with some marionette hands and a little hypnotic spiral behind it. But if you guys don't mind going and checking those out, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in possibly winning one of those for free, then I guess you will have to listen to Inquiries of Our Reality to learn how you might be able to do that.
Oh, that's a teaser.
There you go. I didn't want to advertise on this show. I figured keep that over there. So,
all right. And kind of circling back to live shows and whatnot, you guys, as kind of Shane alluded to, be sure to kind of check out the Open Minds Media YouTube channel for whenever we're doing live shows of Bizarre Encounters as well. It's normally going to be between 7 and 7:30 on Thursdays, depending on whenever we get this shit show started.
And if you guys want to make it easier for yourself, you guys can always go and subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification up in the corner, and then anytime we go live, you guys get a notification you can pop in. That's probably the easiest way, or you guys can always pick up the live schedules at the beginning of the week. But generally, Bizarre Encounters, we will always be doing around 7:30 every Thursday. So...
And if anybody wants to be a guest on the show or get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can always call or text the hotline. That number is 313-364-1551, and you guys can find that quick and easy down in the show notes. Or, of course, if you guys have us on social media, you guys can always shoot us a message there. Always a viable option also.
And as always, all the shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description. So before we jump into tonight's material, this is one that Shane kind of put together. It's something that is close to his heart, metaphorically and physically. Something that I was super familiar with, so I think it's going to be a fun one for me to learn a little bit about, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy learning about it too. So Shane, without further ado, why don't you tell everybody what we're going to be talking about tonight?
So this one, as you kind of mentioned, is a little bit near and dear to me as far as it is one of the OG pieces of Detroit folklore. I kind of feel like it's one of those kind of forgotten ones as far as Detroit, because you don't usually think of folklore and you think of Detroit. But once I started really diving into this, I realized that Detroit is a very sacred land as far as like the natives and everything go. And then all these French traders started coming in and all of this weird stuff started happening. So honestly, there's probably going to be a lot more diving into some of this Detroit stuff because honestly, digging into the land, I found a lot of stuff that I really haven't heard anybody really mention or talk about. But at least the one we are going to be getting into today, because I've heard one or two other podcasts do it in the past, but they weren't Detroiters, so I felt like I needed to throw my part in and do it just being from the Detroit area. So we are going to be diving into the Nain Rouge today. And for anybody that may not be familiar with what the Nain Rouge is, the Nain Rouge is a figure deeply embedded in the folklore of Detroit. It holds a significant place in Detroit's cultural identity. Often described as a harbinger of doom, its appearance is said to presage misfortune for the area. This mythical creature is not merely a historical footnote, but remains an active part of Detroit's culture and mythology. Evident by the annual March Day Nain Rouge Parade, a modern tradition that draws thousands to Midtown Detroit each year. This legend's enduring nature speaks to its persistence held on the collective imagination of Detroiters. And as you guys have caught there, the whole harbinger of doom idea, we are definitely going to be diving into that because not only does this thing have one appearance before bad things happen in Detroit, but almost every bad thing that's happened in Detroit, this thing has made an appearance before. So it is definitely a harbinger of doom, more so than what most people kind of associate that name with.
So it's a very busy little goblin?
It's a very, very busy little goblin.
Okay.
But, due to all of the hard times that have hit Detroit, though, it has made people, I feel, be very strong-willed towards the city, where it's kind of one of those things that through trauma breeds people that are very very strong-suited and just very, hold the city to heart. But it's one of those things for me that it's always been really, really hard to do that for Detroit just because, I never really saw it during any of the good times. I've seen it pretty beat up the majority of its life. But, some of the diehard boomers and Gen Zs, they started to see the good side of Detroit before everything started kind of going downhill. So, those people definitely hold Detroit very close to their heart.
Fuck all you hoes! Detroit till I die, motherfucker!
All right, calm down, Kid Rock. We didn't need your interjection. We get that you're passionate about Detroit, but this is not the place for you, Kid Rock. Go away.
I didn't know Kid Rock was going to be making an appearance tonight.
Of course, some of the Detroit boys will be making an appearance today. You'll just have to wait and figure out which ones they might be. Because, as they say...
Wow, they know how to party in Detroit, huh?
Okay.
But diving back in today to what we're diving into, the name Nain Rouge itself offers insight into the legend's origins. Translated from the French word for red dwarf or red gnome, the moniker immediately conjures an image of a small, perhaps mischievous being. This is further enforced by the alternative name often associated with the creature, Demon of the Strait, a reference to the Detroit River, the narrow waterway that defines the city's geography. The color red in folklore often symbolizes danger, blood, or even potent connections to the earth and nature, while the term dwarf typically implies a being of small stature, often associated with the supernatural or trickery. Given Detroit's French colonial history, dating back to its founding by Antoine de la Motte Cadillac, the French name is a clear indicator of the legend's early European roots in the region, even though there are no records that indicate the legend of the Nain Rouge prior to the 1880s. And actually, I did find a copy of this book. I found a PDF of it. We're not going to dive into the full story today because I did kind of reread it a little bit because it is in a bit of, I guess you could say, Old English / kind of French mixture. So it kind of gets confusing. It's a little bit easier just to
paraphrase?
To paraphrase it, yes. That was what I was looking for here. I'm trying to see if I can bring it up. I know I have it up here. There it is. All right. This is the picture I want to bring up because this was technically the very first picture supposedly drawn of the Nain Rouge, which is definitely worth interest, of course. But the Nain Rouge first appeared in Marie Caroline Watson Hamilton's 1883 book, Legends of Les Detroit, which is exactly what this is over here on the other screen. While she describes the Nain Rouge as a dwarf, very red in the face with a bright glistening eye, and with a grinning mouth displaying sharp pointed teeth, the Nain Rouge was then included in Charles M. Skimmer's 1896 book, Myths and Legends of Our Own Land, described as a shambling, red-faced creature with a cold, glistening eye and teeth protruding from a grinning mouth. And like I mentioned, I kind of summarized the story a little bit. But before we get into the story, I wanted to give everybody kind of just a brief description on who Antoine de la Mothe-Cadillac was. And I'll kind of throw in my piece after I kind of get past this paragraph. But Antoine de la Mothe-Cadillac was a French explorer and an administrator in New France, best known for founding Detroit in 1701. He was an ambitious and often controversial figure who also served as the governor of Louisiana. While recognized for his strategic vision in establishing key settlements, he faced criticism for his dealings and self-promotion. His legacy endures through the city he founded and the luxury car brand that bears his name, hence the name Cadillac, as everybody I'm sure is familiar. But as I was diving into this guy a little bit, some of the stuff that I had kind of brought up was that he was a very arrogant person from everything that I heard. He thought that he could do no wrong, like he was the best that there ever was. So it kind of fits in that he would be the one that would end up dooming Detroit because as we get into from this next tale, he definitely does not show the Nain Rouge any means of respect. But hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break.
But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Bizarre Encounters on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment or spark up a conversation. We love getting to know you guys.
And now back to the show. All right, so diving into the story, I don't know if you want me to try to skim through this as awful as I tend to read, or if you want to use your little bit more professional reader voice for this, but we can do it either way, my friend.
I mean, however you want to do it, I'm fine with reading the story if you want me to.
All right, I'll let you read just the story portion at least, so that the listeners don't have to deal with me too much skimming through stuff.
All right, well, I will do my best. The crisp autumn air nipped at Antoine de la Mothe-Cadillac's cheeks as he surveyed his fledgling settlement on the banks of the Detroit River. Dreams of a prosperous fur trading hub danced in his ambitious mind, but whispers like the rustling of the leaves followed him. An old woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, had warned him about a creature of ill omen, a red dwarf known as the Nain Rouge. "Respect him, Monsieur Cadillac," she'd croak, her eyes glistening with an unsettling knowing. "Ignore him, and misfortune will cling to your city like river mist." Cadillac, a man of action and perhaps a touch of arrogance, scoffed at such peasant superstitions. He had tamed the wilderness. A tiny red imp held no fear for him.
Kiss my ass.
D'accord. Faisons comme ça. Ravi de t'avoir revu, l'ami.
Is that a direct quote?
Yeah, that was a direct quote of exactly what happened when they were like, "Respect this thing." He was like, "Kiss my ass."
Seems legit.
Seems pretty legit, right?
So one blustery afternoon, as the muddy banks of the river churned, Cadillac strode purposefully, his cane tapping a brisk rhythm against the uneven ground. Suddenly, a flash of red caught his eye. There, squatting near a tangle of driftwood, was the creature from the old woman's tales. It was small, no bigger than a stout dog, covered in bristly red fur, with eyes that glowed and an unsettling intensity. Its teeth, even from a distance, looked sharp and wicked. Instead of heeding the warning, a surge of irritation rose within Cadillac. This grotesque little beast dared to sully the landscape of his grand vision. He marched toward it, his face darkening. "Get out of my sight, you foul thing," he bellowed, raising his cane. So kind of exactly what you just said in the little soundbite there.
Exactly. Kiss my ass, you little bastard. Little red bastard.
The Nain Rouge, startled by the outburst, looked up at the imposing figure of Cadillac. For a moment, their gazes locked. Then a high-pitched, mocking laugh echoed across the riverbank as the creature...
I was adding sound effects.
Was that another direct quote?
That's the Nain Rouge. That's what happened as he ran away.
As the creature darted away, disappearing into the undergrowth. Cadillac, still fuming, dismissed the encounter, but the old woman's words soon echoed with chilling accuracy. Accusations of corruption and mismanagement began to plague him. His authority waned, his dreams of prosperity soured, and eventually he was stripped of his command and even faced imprisonment. As for Detroit, a shadow seemed to fall over the burgeoning settlement. Fires swept through the wooden buildings, battles raged within its walls, and unrest simmered beneath the surface. Each misfortune, whispered the fearful townsfolk, was a consequence of Cadillac's disrespect, a ripple effect of the Nain Rouge's curse. Generations passed, and the legend of the Nain Rouge persisted. Sightings became omens, whispered warnings before tragedy struck. The Red Dwarf became an unwelcome, yet strangely familiar specter in the city's folklore. Then, one spring day, the people of Detroit decided that they had had enough of misfortune. They gathered in vibrant costumes, their faces painted in defiance, and marched through the streets in a spirited procession. They banged drums, sang boisterously, and carried effigies of the mischievous Red Imp. This became the Marche du Nain Rouge, a yearly ritual to symbolically banish the creature and ward off bad luck.
So before we get into other historical sightings, I want to get some of your thoughts on this so far, and I have some additional stuff I got to throw in at this point too. But I'll let you kind of throw your thoughts on what you're kind of thinking of this thing so far.
Yeah, so I think this is a really cool one. I think it is very similar to a lot of things we've talked about on the show in the past. I mean, obviously you've got kind of like elemental fae folk type situation. Obviously Harbinger of Doom, Mothman, we talk about a lot, even like Snarly Yow. And if I'm not mistaken, there's some stuff in the notes a little later on that I think is also kind of reminiscent of the Snarly Yow. But I also thought this was kind of interesting. The tidbit about bright glistening eyes. That kind of reminded me of the Moon-eyed people that we talked about in kind of Cherokee Appalachian folklore, where it's a very similar type, you know, little dwarfish type creature with large glistening eyes. Let's see what else I wrote down here. I think that was most everything I had. The only other thing I would add, and this is not something super specific to the Nain Rouge itself, but just in general, I did not realize how much like French history that Detroit had, which I guess makes sense. It's kind of, you know, French Canadian, Montreal is kind of close to all that. But, you know, you always hear about Mardi Gras and, you know, Louisiana and Cajun culture and all that. But I never realized that Detroit had so much French culture, and this Marche des Nain Rouge sounds a lot like Mardi Gras. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
So, I mean, just to throw some stuff in here, I think I told you before the show, but obviously everything kind of gets English Americanized as things end up going through the years. But like Detroit, the technical way you would have said it would have been Detroit. Like it would have been like a French word. And even like throughout Michigan, we have a lot of spots that a lot of people can't pronounce because they're technically French words, like Sault Ste. Marie. Like it's spelled totally not like that. And like Mackinac, it's spelled completely not look what it looks like it said. Like once you actually start diving into it, you realize that like Michigan is just basically was all French fur trappers realistically, and like the natives up until like, you know, late mid 1800s realistically, because it was still a territory when the Civil War and everything was going on. It wasn't actually made into a state until I think late 1800s, if I'm not mistaken, like 1880 something, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was just rough, wide open territory, just full of fur trappers and wild animals, and that was basically it for Michigan. But for all of that, it's like people diving into history. You know, most people when they dive into history, they're looking at it from the point of like when colonial civilization realistically showed up. But, you know, Detroit, everybody kind of has this idea of it. But me diving into all this stuff now, it's like I didn't realize how much like deep folklore there was for Detroit specifically. And as I was mentioning earlier, like Detroit specifically was like sacred land, which completely makes sense why this curse would happen from this guy coming in and essentially just completely taking this land. And the other kind of weird part that I was going to mention, I didn't really know where to stick it in the notes, but I think I mentioned this on a previous show, but we have something called the Masonic Temple in Detroit, and everybody knows it as this like concert venue. But you start diving into the history of it, and this place was actually founded by Crowley himself. So diving into like the weirdness of Detroit, you have the start of this weird red fey-like imp. You have all this weird underlying like occult history baked into Detroit. You got Crowley himself showing up to create a Masonic temple here. Like, and then you have all these weird structures downtown. Like they have this one that it looks like a giant portal to me. I can't see it as anything else but they say it like represents Detroit, but there's this particular like stone where it looks like souls like trapped inside of like a portal or something. Like there is so much like occult underlining to Detroit that I don't like. It seems like it's been hidden like for a very long time. Like it's been basically since like the origin of the city, because I mean, you dive into like a lot of the occult stuff and it's all rooted in these like paganistic ideas. And I mean, the imp, the whole like Green Man concept, like all of that is all kind of seems like it's rooted in the same place. But again, is that just like the Europeans putting their views on stuff, or is it another thing where, like we talked about on the show, the phenomenon is happening everywhere and it's just everybody kind of has different names for these things? Because the natives, I mean, we'll dive into it a little bit, but they are even talking about these like this little red imp type being, but it wasn't documented until the 1800s, like I mentioned. But there's still the stories around it. It's still word of mouth, but.
Oh yeah. And as we've talked about in so many of these like older folklore type stories, it's amazing to me like how similar a lot of the European folklore is to Native American folklore, which again, kind of to me is evidence that, like you said, there is just this global phenomena that's going on. And, you know, one tribe's I don't know, moon-eyed person is an English settlement's Nain Rouge. You know, it's like we talk about all the time. It could be, you know, just multiple names for the same thing. But again, that kind of becomes a chicken or egg situation. Did these European settlers, you know, kind of bring this folklore with them and then kind of imprint it on what was already here, or vice versa? So I think, you know, all that kind of stuff's really fun to think about.
I mean, even the land itself, it's like, and you talk about these native curses, as you want to call them. Is that even necessarily the case? Because there's two ways of viewing it. There's either one, these were sacred lands and there was some type of curse or something put on it, or on the flip side of it, they were sacred lands because something was here and the natives never cursed anything or did anything like that. It was more so a matter of the natives knew, like, this is the area for this thing. We leave it alone. You know, we come in, we show our respect, we leave. Like, they know we don't settle here. But then when the colonists come in, they just start settling in those spots, and they think that the natives were cursing them, but it was never them. It was just the natives being like, no, this is the territory of something else. Like, we don't come here.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting thought, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I mean, the idea of sacred places and, you know, places you just don't go, it makes sense that, you know, arrogant European settlers would just come in and be, oh no, fuck that. We're taking this land and we're settling it, you know?
Yeah, this is my land now, bitch.
Yeah. Fuck them curses.
All right. Before we get into the other sightings, I'm going to bring up this image. I meant to bring it up during the last talking about the story and everything, but this was supposedly this image that was created after the story. So this is supposedly Cadillac with the Nain Rouge, which again, looking at this image, it looks very European folklore to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it looks very, you know, dwarf, you know, elf Christmassy. I mean, it's just like the visual image you would have of like European dwarf folklore, pretty much.
And this guy's just holding his cane to it, like, kiss my ass.
We have the direct quote, if I'm not mistaken.
Faisons comme ça.
We do. Let me play it for you guys again.
Kiss my ass.
D'accord. Faisons comme ça.
Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that bizarre stuff you crave.
But just a quick reminder, if you would like to snag some gear from this show, inquiries of our reality, or one of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs and new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of just $15.68. That's oddly specific, plus shipping.
And we're back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it. All right, diving back into some of the other sightings, because I was trying to get a really good timeline of all these different sightings that we're seeing of this thing, and it seems like they're pretty scattered throughout a lot of stuff, so I tried to do my best to kind of get some of the timeline together. There was one I actually did miss, which I will throw in at the end here, but first we'll get into the main sightings of this thing, past Cadillac, of course. So, diving into other historical sightings. The belief in the Nain Rouge is not merely sustained by folklore. It is continuously reinforced by accounts of its appearances preceding significant events in Detroit's history. A pattern too striking to be dismissed as conclusion. In 1763, before the Battle of Bloody Run, a significant defeat for the British during Pontiac's Rebellion, the Nain Rouge was reportedly seen near the Detroit River, its presence a chilling omen of the bloodshed to come. Some accounts even claim the creature revealed in the aftermath dancing among the corpses on the banks of the Detroit River. Which, I don't know, that image of that little demon thing that's on the screen right now, just dancing through corpses, I mean, that's pretty horrifying. I mean...
Yeah, but it's kind of like par for the course with all these like European trickster fairy type entities, is it not?
That's true. Because, I mean, part of the whole thing was he was basically supposedly, there was another part to it, but I didn't want to include it in here because I only found it in one place and I didn't know if it was just something somebody added. But supposedly this thing was basically telling the guy, like they were saying, give up Detroit, you're going to lose, ha ha ha. So he was like already being a trickster and messing with them before this went down, and then afterwards he's dancing through the bodies like, ha 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 ha, or doing one of those.
There you go.
All right, so decades later, in 1805, as a devastating fire engulfed Detroit, many longtime residents believed they glimpsed the Nain Rouge's malevolent face amongst the smoky chaos, a harbinger of the city's near destruction. During the War of 1812, a moment of national humiliation for the United States, General William Hull himself claimed to have witnessed the Nain Rouge grinning through the fog just before he made the difficult decision to surrender Detroit to the British forces. So yet again, another trickster thing making his appearance. But this thing honestly just seems like Cadillac disrespected him, and he's just like, I want to watch this whole world burn, bro. I just want my damn land back. I just want my land back, man. The pattern continued into the 20th century. Some accounts suggesting the Nain Rouge was even seen before the week-long Detroit riots in 1967, a period of intense social unrest and devastation. Perhaps one of the most compelling modern accounts involves two utility workers in 1976 who reported seeing a small, particular figure resembling a child climbing a utility pole just before a brutal ice storm crippled the city, leaving hundreds of thousands without power. These instances, documented through oral histories and even some witness accounts, paint a clear picture of the Nain Rouge as a consistent witness to, and perhaps even a catalyst for Detroit's trials. And just to throw some extra ones in here, because like I said, I did find one right as I was starting to wrap this up. Here it is. An article in the Daily Tribune out of Royal Oak from October 1st, 1986, mentioned the dwarf may have been seen hitchhiking a ride on the Detroit People Mover. No horrible incident was seen afterwards or connected with the ride, and no full confirmation was ever made on that. So I didn't know if I should include that one, but I guess I'll kind of just throw it in here. And then I guess the only other main event that I have to also possibly include is that in 1997, Detroit had some issues with some really, really bad blackouts, and supposedly nobody claimed to have seen them during that. But my argument is it was a blackout. It was fucking pitch black in Detroit. Like, is anybody really seeing this thing during that? And even on the flip side, after it's been like years since this thing has really been acknowledged, I mean, 1986, you kind of had like a little glimpse of it. The 70s, there was maybe two workers that saw it on a utility pole. So by 1997, I felt like the city was so far pulled away from folklore that if anybody did see this thing before the blackout, I really don't feel like it was reported, personally. But that's just my opinion on it. But intriguingly, a more nuanced understanding of the Nain Rouge has emerged in recent times, with some suggesting it might not be inherently malevolent, but rather a guardian spirit attempting to warn the city of impelling danger. Perhaps Cadillac's ignorant dismissal of the creature set a precedent of fear and misunderstanding, obscuring its true intentions. The moniker Demon of the Strait firmly roots the Nain Rouge to the Detroit River, a vital artery of the region, suggesting a deeper connection to the land and its history.
So, if you don't mind, I was going to jump in here. The guardian spirit attempting to warn the city of impending danger.
What does that sound like?
Yeah, this is the part that I thought also kind of sounded like the snarly yowl. You know, there's some people that think this thing is a harbinger of doom and a bad omen, but you know, there's other people that say it's kind of this benevolent spirit that, you know, guides travelers and turns them around if there's danger on the path ahead. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And a little bit later in that same paragraph, when you were talking about kind of its links to the Detroit River and the connection to the land, it kind of made me think about the whole the kappas, I believe that we talked about,
yeah,
the
like
Japanese river imps. I don't know if there's anything there, but you know, they are kind of mischievous little, you know, river dwelling creatures. So yeah, it seems like we come back time and time again to this idea that this sort of paranormal high strangeness activity is kind of situated a lot of times around bodies of water.
And I mean, even to throw in too, like the Mothman, that one's still up for debate on whether or not he was actually trying to warn people of things.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I just thought about while you're explaining that, think about the colors that people describe of all of these things. You have a combination of black and red for all three of the ones that we just mentioned.
Well, and you know, it's always some sort of glowing eyes or something like that. You know, the Mothman, they talk about it's like mesmerizing eyes, and this thing is described as having glowing eyes, and I believe even the snarly yowl, they talk about having glowing red eyes. So I mean, there's these recurring motifs in all these things that, you know, all these cultures across the country and the world just all, you know, came up with on their own. I don't know. That kind of leads me to believe there's at least a nugget of truth there.
And just to throw in another thought on this, like the demon of the straight idea, obviously the whole word demon, that starts coming from like European stuff. That's not something that's within like the folklore or anything. And originally when Cadillac had this interaction with this old lady that told him like, hey, make sure you respect this thing, it could be a matter of respect because this thing could be helpful, like they were bringing up. Because if this thing was staying around these waters, the natives could have used this guy as like a, you know, he's the nature spirit for the area, saying like the waters are safe to travel, the waters are not safe to travel. And it could have literally been a matter of like him basically telling you like when's a safe time to be in this area, when's not a safe time to be in this area. Like he's in full control of this area, but you piss him off and he's not going to make any of these warnings for you, and it's just everything's going to end up falling down. It's not necessarily that he's causing these things, but it's just a matter of he's not doing his job, so to speak, of being the guardian, so to speak, of the area, of letting people know what's going on for the area.
Well, and when we talk about a lot of this Native American type folklore, you know, we have the conversation of, can two things be true at the same time? And yes, there could be some real world, real thing that happened, nugget of truth that these are based off of, like when we talk about the Wendigo. But it could also be, you know, a cautionary tale in a lot of ways. And I could see this story falling in that same category. Yeah, it could totally be there's some sort of trickster, elemental fairy type creature that was seen in years past and preceded all these, you know, horrible occurrences. But it's also a cautionary tale about, you know, teaching you the value of humility and, you know, not judging a book by its cover and all these like warm, fuzzy feelings, you know?
Or, I mean, even like we talked about a few times, just stories to keep people away from a particular area for their own safety. Because, I mean, you get into the Straits of Detroit, like this whole area with all the Detroit River and everything. I mean, everybody already knows all the horror stories and the ghost stories that come out of the Great Lakes. And the Straits of Detroit is basically like the Great Lakes narrowing down into this little tiny point that goes in between the United States and Canada, and then it comes back out. So within that, there is a lot of like weird undercurrents, little winds and twists and little bends to the river and everything. So, I mean, going into the whole idea of whether or not this thing existed or not, it could have literally been a cautionary tale of stay away from this river because you never know what could happen. And the stories could have started because just like a current, you know, something could pull you under. People start telling stories of something pulling them under because they don't understand the dynamics of like how this river current is created at this time. So they just create folklore around it to just stay away from that area.
And something I just thought of while you were talking right now, back to the Moon-Eyed people. Part of that story is there was this river that separated where the Moon-Eyed people lived from where the natives lived. And they thought that this river was occupied by this giant red leech that would like churn up the waters. And if you tried to cross the river to where the Moon-Eyed people live, basically this thing would attack and pull you under. So just a lot of similarities to that story. And I'm kind of thinking about even more the further we get into this.
And I will end up mentioning it just for a brief second as we get farther in, but there is also another folklore creature that inhabits an island that is right off of Detroit, but we will come back around to that one. But diving back into this, beyond the historical accounts that have become part of the city's lore, personal sightings from individuals who claim to have encountered the Nain Rouge offer compelling evidence for believers. The reported encounter by 2 Detroit Edison workers in 1976 stands out as a particularly vivid and well-known modern account. Their initial assumption that they were seeing a child climbing a utility pole, followed by a creature's unexpected leap and subsequent ice storm, resonate with the established pattern of the Nain Rouge appearance. While specific details of other sightings may vary, the consistent thread of encountering a small red figure often precedes misfortune weaves through numerous personal accounts. These first-hand experiences shared with the community serve as a powerful affirmation for those who believe. And just to throw this one in there, just like a lot of like the Bigfoot sightings, all of that stuff, like at least particularly with this one, these 2 utility workers that saw it weren't saying like, oh, it's the Nain Rouge. They said, it looks like a child. Like even in some of the stuff that I dove up with them talking about it in the paper and stuff, they literally describe it as they thought it was a child that painted itself red. They were like, why is this child climbing a utility pole? But the dynamic of basically this thing being at the top of a utility pole, jumping off and then running off into the darkness, it was like, all right, maybe that's not a child.
So kind of 2 thoughts on that before we move on. What this reminded me of a little bit is when we were talking about the Dover Demon, it was mistaken for like this really weird looking child at first too. So not that there's really much of a connection there. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And also this utility pole idea. When we talked about the Mothman prophecies in our series, this idea of the Mothman being seen on the bridge, of course, everybody's familiar with, but also there is a lot of like these strange ultra-terrestrial Men in Black type entities that John Keel talks about that were routinely seen on power lines during, the whole Mothman fiasco. So I don't know if there's any connection there, but just something I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, you saying that, it almost kind of makes me wonder if, all right, let me try to lay this out. So the whole idea of like an archetype, right? Every area has this archetype of this. It's a certain type of entity or a certain type of being, right? And it has this specific job in this area, and it's supposed to be the harbinger of doom, the people that warns people of things. But depending on the thought that people have in the area, it takes shape of whatever their thought pattern is on it. So with that being said, maybe like every area has something like this. And depending on like what the view is of society on that particular thing kind of defines like what image that it might appear as, meaning that like the Snarly Yow, the Mothman, the Nain Rouge, like they could all be the same type of entity, but rather that they're able to either 1, change their image, or 2, they don't have a definite image because there's some type of like nature spirit or ground spirit or something that's connected to the land itself, or it maybe doesn't even have an inherent shape to itself. Maybe it's just like a consciousness that's within the area that has a way that it can manifest itself when it chooses to.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of gets back to the idea of the phenomenon wearing masks and presenting itself, as we see fit for it to present itself. And I think it makes a lot of sense that it would also take on these super localized manifestations. And I think, you're talking about since like the 70s, there haven't been as many sightings of this thing. I also think it makes a lot of sense that pre-internet, pre-technology, these things would be even more highly localized in their manifestations and how they present themselves. When everybody has, a phone in their pocket, it might make more sense for these things to adopt a more universal mask. Whereas back in, hell, even prior to 20, 30 years ago, the phenomenon could manifest itself in these highly localized regional depictions. Hold that thought. We'll be back in a flash.
But if you guys don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Inquiries of All Reality on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $1 a month. That's less than a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in merch store discounts or premium video versions of episodes, then there are a few other tiers with additional benefits and 7-day free trials available.
And now back to the show.
Something else kind of weird to think about too. So I don't know how much validity there is to this because I don't know how you would know this exact spot that this supposed encounter happened with Cadillac, but part of the folklore supposedly says that this area of where this supposedly happened at is supposedly the same area where Crowley built the Masonic Temple. So you want to get into the weird stuff with Crowley with like Lamb, for example, these small impish things that he seems to go to these quote portal locations and try to stir up or bring back. Like even talking about the Loch Ness Monster, like he supposedly said he claimed like there was the sightings of it. They disappeared. He came into the area, then all of a sudden the sightings started coming back again. Like he supposedly conjured something as he claims to do. And I don't know how much validity you put into Crowley or not, but I mean, it seems like there was kind of a gap in sightings. Early 1900s, Crowley does that, and then there's like another little cluster that happens again of sightings. Like, I don't know if there's a connection to it. I don't know if maybe it's a matter of, again, these particular areas, they know that there's this like opening or this veil that they can take advantage of, which again could completely make sense with the whole occult history of Detroit. But I don't know, just something weird to throw in that supposedly that was the area where the Masonic Temple is. There might be a lot more like occult inclination to this than previously expected.
Well, and taking it a step further with the whole Crowley connections, our boy Jack Parsons, we talked about in that series this idea of him creating a homunculus, which is kind of in its own way a little impish dwarf type creature. And I didn't think about this till just now, but this idea that this thing is always depicted as being red. Well, the color red is like very significant in the kind of whole Jack Parsons story, about like his Crimson Lady or whatever. So, again, is there something there? Are we trying to put pieces together that might not really be there? Yeah, it's possible, but I think there's enough little nuggets there that we can, try to connect the dots a little bit.
There's definitely something weird. It's just a matter of throwing enough shit at the wall till we figure out what weird stuff actually sticks.
Throwing shit at the wall. That's what we do on this show.
That's all you really can do when you're diving into this type of stuff, realistically. I mean, throw shit at the wall and see what makes sense, right? So diving into some possible origins of this thing. The origins of the Nain Rouge legend are a subject of ongoing discussion, with theories pointing towards both European and Native American roots, as we mentioned, and the possibility of a blend of the two. One predominant theory suggests a derivation. See, this, I was going to do it at some point, man.
Today, Junior?
All right, Billy, fuck off, man. I don't want your humor over here, man. I'm just trying to read, and you're fucking it all up for me, man. And, just take your basketball shorts, man, and just go elsewhere.
Oh my God, that is funny!
God damn, Adam Sandler's kind of rude, bro.
He's savage.
He's savage, man. Go away, Adam Sandler. All right, so hopping back in after that rude comment from Adam Sandler.
It's Billy Madison. It's not Adam Sandler.
Goddamn Billy Madison.
Pissing your pants is the coolest.
One prominent theory suggests a derivative. See, I'm still going to fuck up on it. You just try it for me. You go.
Derivation?
Ahead. Derivation. There he goes. Suggests a derivation from Norman French folklore, specifically tales of the Lutton, a type of hobgoblin known for its mischievous nature. This connection to European tradition aligns with the mere French settlers of Detroit in the 18th century. And I'm going to throw this in here because I didn't throw it into the notes, but supposedly the word Nain in French is supposedly talking about somebody that's short or didn't grow to proper height, or so there's like multiple different variations of like what the Nain part could definitely suggest, but short red definitely would make sense if you break it down in French, that you're basically saying like a short red little person realistically. But
gotcha.
Anyways, parallels can also be drawn to broader European folklore featuring small, often red-hued mythical beings, some of whom are associated with omens, or trickery. Conversely, another perspective posits a Native American origin, with the claims that the Nain Rouge stems from the legends of the snake goddess of Belle Isle, as I told you I was going to bring up at some point, or the impish offspring of the stone god, or even resembles a Native American earth spirit, perhaps even the protector of the land. So I'm going to stop right here for 1 second, because I'm sure that you probably have a comment to make about there being a snake goddess in Belle Isle with these rivers.
You know me too well. No, you knew I was going to talk about serpents and snake goddesses and all that. I mean, how many times do we talk about this on the show? Like, I believe one of the most recent times we talked about the idea of some sort of serpent god or serpent spirit was when we talked about the Lost Colony, which is kind of funny. You know, a lot of misfortune and bad stuff happened to those European settlers when they came over and kind of whooped their dicks out all over this land that was not theirs. So, I mean, that's kind of something interesting too. And then, of course, it gets back to ideas of reptilians and then, you know, what is the serpent in the Bible? And I mean, there's a whole episode we could, probably a whole series we could do on just representations of serpents and snakes in all sorts of folklore and legend. But yeah, you knew I was going to have something to say about that. So I hope I didn't disappoint.
No, I was going to say it's definitely like even a direct reference to the Bible itself, talking about basically this, you know, they're in the land, they're like, all right, I'm going to take what I want. And then the snake ends up being the thing that ends up like dooming him. So it's like that story like literally goes back to the Bible. And I'm sure if you dive into it, it probably goes back way further than that. But the whole like wisdom aspect of the snake,
it goes back to like Mesopotamia and shit like that, you know?
Exactly. But popping back in, this interpretation often emphasizes the Nain Rouge's role as a harbinger of misfortune, specifically for white settlers, prominently implying a connection to the historical tensions between indigenous populations and colonizers. And at a certain point, too, it almost makes you wonder if bad shit starts happening, if the natives are just like, oh, yeah, it was definitely us. Like, they just kind of play into it, you know? Like, yeah, we definitely did that. Don't fuck with us next time.
You definitely don't want to take our land. The fucking snake goddess is going to get you.
Yeah, you didn't learn the last time. Maybe you'll learn this time, man. You're just sitting back like, yeah, we cursed it. I don't know what to tell you, bro.
Yep, that's definitely cursed.
That's what happened. Additionally, there are potential parallels between the Nain Rouge and Algonquin trickster figures such as Nanbazo. I'm gonna hope that that's exactly how it's said. Nanabazo, who is sometimes depicted as a red rabbit. The shared red color and mischievous nature of both figures hint at a possible link or influence. Nanabazo, a complex character in indigenous folklore, embodies both malevolent and troublesome aspects, offering a framework for understanding the ambiguous nature attributed to the Nain Rouge. The historical context of interactions between French settlers and Native American tribes in the Detroit area is often crucial to understand the legend's development. These interactions, which included both cooperation and conflict, likely contributed to the integrated nature of the Nain Rouge legend, blending European folkloric traditions with indigenous beliefs. And like I said, at a certain point, it's kind of like we had something, you had something, it just ends up playing telephone, and yeah, we cursed the land. Sure, if that's what you want to believe, like, just don't fuck with us next time. And also give us some good prices on this fur trade that we're doing, you know? Give us some guns.
I love a good fur trade. But anyway, so just one thing I want to throw in real quick. It seems like this idea of a rabbit representing like trickster entities shows up a lot in Native American folklore. Jenny actually got me this book for Christmas about tricksters. Somebody that was on Joe Rogan was talking about it. We can't go back and find the episode. But anyway, it talks a lot about the idea that the rabbit is like a trickster figure in Native American folklore. So when I saw that here, I was like, oh my God, here it is again. And the color red as well. You know, there's definitely something to that.
I mean, even the whole like rabbit ears with two red horns. I mean, I feel like they're very close, you know, like the ears and the horns could definitely be like, if you're seeing this thing in the dark, like you could be thinking that you're looking at two people can describe the same thing in two different ways like that.
And what's also kind of interesting to think about is especially like white rabbits have red eyes a lot of times.
That's true. And also, I mean, going into the context of the area too, because if the natives don't necessarily have the idea of like what Europeans imagine a demon to look like, you know, they just see this thing that's running around and looks like it has these 2 bumps on the top of its heads. They go, all right, that's a rabbit. These Europeans, they see something that has these 2 things on the top of its head, but they notice that it has the scaly looking look to it or whatever. And they're like, all right, that kind of fits what we're talking about. Like, literally, it just could be a matter of the natives weren't familiar with this whole, like, demon aspect. They had different things attributed to it. Because it's like, one of the closest things that I'd say to, like, with Native American folklore to, like, a demon would be, like, Skinwalker, Wendigo. Like, they're not described the same way. And even, like, the whole horned aspect, like, with a lot of the native stuff, could be a matter of context, but, like, a lot of the Native American legends for stuff, they're not, I mean, retelling of them, they call them, like, the horned serpent, this, that, but, like, the native depictions call them, like, the antlered serpent, and they describe them as having antlers, not, like, horns like what we think of as horns.
Well, this idea of, first off, this idea of absolute good and absolute evil is, you know, in the scheme of things, very recent. And also, this idea of the modern depiction of demons or the devil is even more recent. You know, this red thing with horns and a tail carrying a pitchfork. I mean, that's basically a brand new construct. So it makes sense that, you know, even if theoretically they're talking about the same thing, these Native Americans would not have depicted these demon entities in the same way that we currently think about those things, because I mean, we think about all this sort of stuff in a very fucking Looney Tunes cartoon ass perspective, you know? I
mean, even the Nain Rouge, like some of like the more modern depictions of this thing, like let me bring up my good old picture file here. And for all the listeners that didn't get to see the picture aspect of this, I will probably include it in the cover art so you guys will be able to see it and you guys will know exactly what we're talking about. But just to bring it up here, sorry, I was getting distracted talking for a minute and I didn't bring up the picture I was trying to bring up. But like, look at the depictions, dude. Like, does it look like a demon because of the Hollywood idea of a demon? So we started calling it the Demon of Detroit, and it's kind of taken on this more demon look. Like, because this is obviously what people are kind of describing it as now, but you go back to these old pictures and look how it's described. It's like, has some of like the characteristics as far as like skin features and stuff, but like the red primarily seems to have come from like the hair and everything else on it, and not from like the skin itself being described as like this demon type being. Like, this is 100% like they were describing one thing and then the European folklore turned it into basically this comical demon aspect, where people know it as like the devil of Detroit, the demon of Detroit. And that's, they've just kind of furthered the stereotype of it being brought into this view rather than it being this like impish nature spirit, pagan native view of this thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's much more Fae-like almost in the older depictions. And yeah, this picture you have pulled up on the screen now, I mean, it's basically a cartoonish depiction of a devil, like we talked about. You know, it's got even like down to the goatee and eyebrows. It's like an Anton LaVey-ass looking demon here that we're looking at, you know.
And I mean, I'll even bring this up too. So I got some pictures of the parade, which we will definitely get into. But let's see, Chrome tab, Nain Rouge, there it is. All right, so like, this shows some of like the costumes and stuff that people are wearing. Like literally there's one of like the old 50s Halloween demon masks. Like here's somebody else dressed up like the Nain Rouge. Like it's pulled a lot away from like the impish look, and people are literally like dressing this thing up like it's like a straight up demon at this point, you know?
Yeah. And I wonder if a lot of that is just kind of marketing, you know, it's more badass and metal for it to be this like demonic devil looking creature than, you know, a cute little garden gnome.
Do you know what else is crazy too? Is that I've been living in the Detroit area my entire life. For as many people as it looks like there are in this picture, I have not heard of this once talked about from any circle that I've ever been in the Detroit area, nor have I ever seen a sign for this event. I've not seen any hankering of this event other than on the internet. And there's a lot of people there. Like, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's kind of a big deal from these pictures.
But I'll tell you what, though. I will definitely be attending this year.
Well, you'll have to report back to us.
I'll have to report during, man. Maybe I'll even go live during.
Oh, you should. Just don't let the little devil get you.
Reporting live from the Marche de la Rouge. And
my God.
I have not seen the imp yet, but we're on the demon watch. We will find this little imp fan man.
You have to pull out your Alex Jones voice on him.
This little imp, he's turning the frogs gay.
I mean, he might be. We don't have confirmation that he's not. All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bazaar.
But anyways, getting into the legend today. The Nain Rouge has evolved into a significant element of Detroit's cultural identity, recognized as Detroit's oldest folklore, which I don't necessarily think is true because you start diving into the native stuff and it goes back way further than that, like I mentioned. But anywho, it fluctuates as a prominent symbol embodying various interpretations ranging from a harbinger of misfortune to a quirky and unique aspect of local lore. A key manifestation of this cultural significance is the annual Marche des Nain Rouge, which has become a major event in Detroit. This parade, with its costume patrons and the symbolic act of chasing away the effigy of the Nain Rouge, demonstrates a unique way in which the community engages with its folklore.
I gotta jump in right there. What does just the sentence, the symbolic act of chasing away an effigy of the Nain Rouge, what does that make you think about that we've talked about not so long ago on the show?
Maybe some type of ritual?
It makes me think about when we talked about Bahamian Grove and the effigy of care and, casting your cares out and burning this effigy of the owl. Very symbolic. So maybe this Marche des Nain Rouge started as you talked about the whole kind of occult undertones of Detroit. I wonder if this thing started as almost like a ritual or a festival or something like that, and it's kind of evolved into what it is now. And maybe that's why, like you said, you've lived there your whole life and have never heard about it. Maybe, this thing is just kind of taken on a second life here recently when it had much more mysterious and darker beginnings.
I mean, even on that aspect, who's to say that if this thing was some type of ritual type thing, that it may not have been exactly what people thought it was, but rather that by doing this ritual, maybe it made it so that they could have some type of control over this thing or something like that, rather than totally banishing it away from the area. If it's more ritualistic, it just seems like, I don't know, maybe the initial one may have kept it away, but by continuing to do it, does it keep it away or does it rather actually draw its attention because you're continuously bringing the thought and idea of this thing back into the area? By turn, it's kind of like that idea about demons, for example, the whole idea with that, not to relate this particularly to demons, but if you forget who they are and you stop worshiping them, then they just become obscure and forgotten about. But if you continuously bring them up and you're constantly mentioning them, then you're bringing them this new life where they never fully go away. You know what I mean? Maybe the first time you banish it, but after that, you're basically just keeping this thing around.
Yeah, and I think it kind of gets back to and not to get too controversial here, but with a lot of these kind of occult rituals and stuff, sacrifice is a big motif that pops up. Detroit's fallen on some hard times in recent decades. I wonder if, as this festival, ritual, whatever you want to call it, got more commercialized and, further away from its roots, I wonder if that aspect kind of fell away.
Or, I mean, you can even start seeing it as disrespectful once it starts becoming commercialized,
Yeah, for real.
But I threw this part in for you because we'll definitely have to try this if you ever make your way to Detroit. But the legend has also inspired local commercial venues such as Detroit's beer companies, Detroit Dwarf Lager, and the Nain Rouge Red Wine, further embodying the figure in the city's contemporary culture. Within the community, interpretations of the Nain Rouge has evolved beyond a purely malevolent entity. Some now view it as a warning figure, alerting the city to impending danger, while others even consider it a potential misunderstood guardian or simply a quirky symbol reflecting Detroit's struggles and resilience. The shift is evident in the emergence of movements like Stop Nain Shame, which advocates for more positive understanding of the creature, which, may I also add, as a Detroiter, I've never heard of this.
Finally, a movement I can get behind.
Stop Nain Shame. It sounds like something German. It sounds more German than it does French.
Every time you say it, nine.
Nine.
Yeah.
Nine. I should have got that as a sound effect, but I can do it good enough.
Nine. What the hell is even that?
The Nain Rouge, therefore, serves as a dynamic focal point for community identity and expression, particularly through the march. This demonstrates how folklore can be actively shaped and reinterpreted by modern society, moving beyond traditional narratives to reflect evolving society and cultural values, and providing a space for Detroiters to grapple with the city's past and future while reflecting the city's resilience, its complex history, and its enduring spirit. And that is all I have for you guys. Done. And done, literally.
That was a good one. I really enjoyed talking about this. Thank you for putting that episode together and presenting it.
This was originally supposed to be one of the Detroit Mystery Series, but as you can see, I expanded on it too much, and I decided to turn it into its own episode. So there will be another Michigan Mysteries. This was supposed to be it, but I gave you guys this instead, because I've been talking about doing the Nain Rouge since we started talking about the show. So it's been like 3 years probably that I've been talking about doing this episode.
Those are always the fun ones. The one that you think is going to be just like a kind of little one-off thing. And then once you get digging into it, they're like, no, there's a lot to talk about here. That's kind of what I did with the Solway Firth Spaceman. I thought, that's just going to be something that we're going to talk about real quick on a live show. And then once I got digging into it, I was like, no, there's a lot to uncover here. And I'm so glad we decided to do this as a whole episode. I mean, it just, like we said, hits on so much that we talk about on the show all the time. There's the whole trickster, elemental fairy type connections there. Just the harbinger of doom and all that. So just a lot of good stuff here. Something that I had heard the name. I knew basically nothing about it though. So I definitely learned something tonight, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners did too, because this is another one of those super regional things that I think, needs attention drawn to it.
See, and that's exactly what my whole thing was with this, is that Detroit, it's like everybody has this idea of Detroit, and Detroit is so industrial now that it's like hard to think about a time where this type of stuff existed. So diving into all the folklore that we've dived into, it's really refreshing to see that there might actually be some of this underlying amazing folklore that actually is in Detroit. And as I kind of threw in with the Stone Belle Isle part, I think that there's probably going to be some future episodes that I could probably dive into, but
stay tuned, guys. This is our last break.
But if you guys enjoyed this show and think we deserve it, please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcatcher you use. Your continued support is what makes this show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help this show grow and improve. So thank you guys. Now feel free to skip past these ads so we can get back to the show.
And now we're getting back to the bazaar.
Just to throw this one in here because I want to give this guy a shout out in the chat, and I find it really funny that he had to throw this in here. For anybody that knows that we've been talking about Bloodchugger on the show, one of our top fans for the show, he had to bring up the fact that Orin is wearing black and red. So his comment is the Big Bad Boo Daddy a harbinger of doom since he's rocking the red and black combo today? And the answer is maybe.
Well, I had to reply, yes. Absolutely a harbinger of doom. Just bad shit seems to follow me. I'm cursed as well as the city of Detroit. But I am rocking my Carolina Hurricanes jersey tonight. They're playing the Washington Capitals as we speak, currently down 0-1. But anyway, yeah, so that's the red and black going on tonight. Hurricanes colors, also my university's colors. Pretty much everything I wear is red and black in some capacity. So
if I'm being totally honest with you, I thought you were wearing it as a slap in the face because you know why.
Would that be because the Hurricanes beat your New Jersey Devils in the previous round of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yes. I literally, as soon as I saw the jersey and I saw NHL, I thought you were going to make some point today to point out the fact that the Hurricanes took out the New Jersey Devils. I thought that was the whole intention.
I didn't need to.
See, because I was going to wear my Devils hat today on purpose, but I was like, I'm not going to wear it just because they got knocked out, and I don't want him to be wearing a Hurricanes thing, and it's a good thing I didn't. So
it's okay. The Hurricanes are probably going to lose in this round anyway. It's been a good run.
Yeah, and New Jersey Devils had a pretty good run too. Better more than I can say for the Blackhawks and for the DetroitRed Wings. So
yeah, it was kind of a rough year for Middle West hockey, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really rough, man. Like normally one of the two of the best teams in the league, dude. Like literally 7th and 8th place for the majority of the season. Like that's crazy. And not to get too much into cryptid or hockey talk on a cryptid show, but I mean, New Jersey Devils. I mean, that for a little fun fact for anybody that might not know, just to bring this back to being somewhat cryptid related. The New Jersey Devils were founded in 1986, if I'm not mistaken, and the whole intention of the team name was to be named after the Jersey Devil himself from the Pine Barrens. So the name wasn't supposed to be the Devils, as people think that it is, because the mascot is a giant devil. It was literally supposed to be named after the New Jersey Devil folklore. So just an interesting fun fact to bring this all around full circle.
Well, a demon horse winged thing just doesn't translate as well to a cute furry mascot.
Dude, I would have loved to have seen that as a mascot. I was thinking that one day, like, why didn't they just do that mascot? That would have been fantastic. Nobody would have gotten it, maybe, but
like drunk dads like yelling at their kids, "Get out there and take your picture with the fucking demon.
Take your picture with the Jersey Devil."
No, Dad.
Dude, you know what's sad though is that there's also the Seattle Krakens, and their mascot is what is it? It's like a water troll or something like that. So it's like, bro, missed opportunity. Why didn't you make the costume some fucking Cthulhu looking fucking Kraken? Instead, you're like, let's pick the water troll.
And the Seattle Supersonics, the basketball team that used to be in Seattle, their mascot, like their actual like thing in the suit, was a Sasquatch. So there's actually a lot of cryptids in sports. You just got to look hard enough for them.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. There should be more of that.
We should do a whole episode about that at some point, like cryptids in sports.
Dude, we could totally do that as like a bizarre inquiries thing. We could collect all the teams and just make reference to it and just make jokes about it. That could totally be a bizarre inquiries topic.
Yeah, you'll just have to cut all this out of the end of the show so people don't know that we thought about this on the fly.
Oh, I'm going to leave it in. It might as well, you know? I mean, we do a lot of editing around here, so you might as well leave this part in. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do a lot of editing. Except for when I'm reading, because Billy Madison / Adam Sandler gets really fucking rude if I don't try to censor myself at least a little bit.
Today, Junior.
Oh my god, that is funny!
God, that guy is so rude. Like, I think his laugh is supposed to be sincere, but the comment comes after and it loses all validity. But
yeah, he's a little condescending.
We might as well get out of here before Adam Sandler gets too fucking rude and ramped up. But if anybody enjoyed today's conversation and wants to show some love, smash that follow icon and share today's episode with a friend. Grassroots supports from listeners like you guys is exactly how this show grows. So thank you. And as a Detroiter, you guys know you got to share this episode with other fellow Detroiters to try to bring back some of the folklore to Detroit.
And if anyone would like to get in touch with us for any reason whatsoever, or to be a guest on the show, you can be a show on the guest.
You can be a show on the guest too. That works.
Yeah, we don't give a fuck.
What the hell is even that?
Yeah, for real. Anyway, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
You guys can first and foremost email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the ones that we are the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of us through the submission forum, which is available on the Linktree, which is also available down in that show description. And last but not least, you guys can text or call the hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys missed that, it is, again, also available down in those show notes.
And you guys be sure to show some love to our sponsors and friends of the show. We've got our buddies Rick and Hans at I Know Squatch for all your squatchy gear needs. We've got our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow, with Snarly Yow Natural Products. He makes some great beard oils and body washes and things like that. Also puts on some kick-ass events. So y'all be on the lookout for that. We've got our buddy Joe with Crypto Theology. You ready for it?
For your, I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to let you say it. It's more fun when you do it.
For your wearable cryptids.
There you go.
And then we've also got Big Ape Threads.
And if you guys also have time, don't forget to go and check out our awesome friends with affiliate links. Over there, we got Dimension Devices for all of your fascinating paranormal investigating equipment. And you guys can also check out Oregon-ite and Sticker Mule. And you guys have additional discounts and credits, which are available for those down in the show description. And every single thing that we mention is all available in the Linktree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, I have been the one that, like, 2-3 people maybe call Shane Squatch.
And I have been the big, bad Boo Daddy, Harbinger of Doom himself, the Carolina Hurricane, Orin Felix.
Daddy, chill.
And guys, like I tell you every single episode, and just like Detroit tends to do, or maybe we party, I don't know, that depends on who you ask.
Wow,
I mean, this guy says we know how to party in Detroit, but anyways, always stay bizarre, my friends. Bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Oh my God, I didn't have a good one.
I'm going to leave that.